So you're new to the game, just unlock the pits, and want to see what all the fuss is about. Hey there, Silver-Tongued Devil here, and if any of that didn't look very inviting, well, don't worry, it's not supposed to be. And if some or all of those clips didn't make much sense, don't worry, they will do soon. Know that pits are probably one of the biggest spikes in difficulty in the entire game. However, they are completely optional. So why even go in at all?
A just question, my liege.
When you've got everything in the game done so you're at 100% completion, it's points. This is due to the pit conferring a 2.5 times multiplier on everything you do in there, lots more enemies for you to kill, with some particularly tough enemies in there that you can milk to up that score. So what business do you have going in there? In a word, achievements. And it's a good place to farm certain enemies that will lead to others. You'll also be able to pull some extra drops out of there regardless of your level. So when is the right time to start attempting pits? The longer you leave it, the more achievements you'll unlock and the more powerful you'll be. The flip side of this is that the longer you leave it, the higher percentage achievements you'll get, and this will unfortunately increase the populations within the pits. So I'd say there's no time like the present, and all of the techniques and the arrows that we're going to be using are available from the start. I would also add that if you followed my previous advice and started this game by rocking the crossbow, good on you. You may find this a little easier than the bow user. So, let's get you pit ready. When you encounter the pit entrance, I would kill everything in that section of Purgatory. This is so that when you make it back out, you don't have any nasty surprises to deal with. It's also so that we can take stock of our situation, ensure that we have enough life and resources, and also take a visit to the shop to gather more. My two top picks that you will definitely have available, as they're unlocked from the start of the game, are Winter's Bite and Barrage of Needles. And don't worry about the upgrades on either of them, they do the job that we need them to from the start. There will eventually be 3 pits available to you in Purgatory, but assuming this is either your first time in or you haven't completed the first pit, we'll be going into the Pit of Reformation. So without further ado, let's jump straight into that lovely looking red portal of death. Welcome to Reformation Reception. Now just a quick note here, you are safe at this point. No enemies have been spawned yet and the level hasn't really begun. As soon as you step through that door yonder, that's when the fun begins. It's also worth noting that the Pit of Reformation is always going to be the same configuration, and that there are 2 entrances to it, and we have randomly been selected to start at one. We will be up against 5 different types of enemies in the Pits of Purgatory. The 3 that you will always find down here are abominations, you'll have seen before. Ghosts, those things that you shot in the chest that were guarding the entrance, are in here in plentiful numbers. An enemy type you may not have seen so far is the incubus. Big, flowing demons, basically. They do have the ability to cast fireballs, which you cannot block with your shield. You'll have to get out of the way of them. They also possess the ability to teleport and have a rather large health pool. However, they're not all that tough. They have one serious weakness: headshots, and they've got a pretty big head at that too. It's a relatively easy shot, causes decent amounts of damage, will cause them to stagger, be knocked back, and will also interrupt any fireballs that they are trying to cast. The other 2 enemy slots are randomly selected from a pool of 4. That pool is made up of regular monk archers, white knights, skeleton warriors, and your new worst enemy, the skeleton archer. The first 2 you will have dealt with before. Skeleton warriors are basically a knight. They'll always have a shield, and they also have the ability to teleport, and you will find that they are faster and more aggressive. We will be dealing with them in much the same way as a white knight, i.e. headshots, and also using their own teleport tactics against them, as when they teleport next to you, they are vulnerable for a couple of seconds before they strike. They can also begin their lunge attack as they teleport, so have your shield handy just in case. Skeleton archers are the freshest kind of hell. They fire faster shots, they fire more often, and they're very accurate. They also have a tendency to teleport very far away from you, and usually to some very interesting angles, often making retaliation quite difficult. Couple this with the fact that they are the only enemy in the game that will actively try to teleport outside of your line of sight, often meaning that you don't know where you're being shot at by the skeleton archer until it's too late. Try to avoid being in the large open spaces to combat this, or at the very least be in a corner or have a wall to your back. They also have one last trick up their sleeve for us, in that when they die they spawn an abomination. Don't forget about that. Alright, let's start putting this plan into action. Yeah, we're not going to be going that fast, don't worry. We'll be taking it nice and slow and steady. So what we're looking to do here is clear out the initial area that we start in, just to give us somewhere safe to retreat back to. And we're going to do that by luring single or small groups of enemies to us and dispatching them. Initially we want to do this by peeking round the corners. Any enemies that are close enough and in line of sight will be alerted and will head towards us. We then want to retreat back into our opening area and fight. Once we've cleared the close threats, we're then going to be looking a little bit further afield into this first room that we're securing. We're going to do this by singling out enemies, firing a single arrow or bolt near or around them. Then we're going to jump back and wait for them to come to us. After we've eliminated everything that we can see, we're then going to pick apart what's left within these opening rooms in much the same method. Alert, retreat, wait for them to come to us, and deal with them. There are a lot of sound cues in this game, be mindful of them and what they are. For those of you that know my playstyle, you probably thought you'd never hear these words. Slow and steady will win this race. So we're going to use the previous tactics to go into the next room and secure that. Alert the close enemies, retreat back into our safe space, deal with them. Alert the further away enemies, retreat back into our safe space and deal with them. Hunt down any stragglers and then proceed into the next room. Always bear in mind where your safe spaces are and the routes back to them. Be calm and calculating with your shots here. Be mindful of your angles and try not to send shots whizzing down corridors or through archways into rooms that you haven't cleared yet. That is the easiest way to get swarmed. So you remember those special arrows that I told you to bring along? Be liberal with them, they can be very useful down here, especially when securing your entrance. When you hear those ghost cues or you're luring ghosts in, stay away from those walls to give you plenty of time to line up. Have your barrage of needles ready, wait for them to close, and then fire in or around the chest for an easy kill. The Winter's Bites, however, are for skeletons. The freeze effect will pin them in place and stop them teleporting around, again giving us an easy kill. Do note that although Incubi will take damage from a Winter's Bite, they are immune to being frozen in place.
Break! We are leaving!
Thankfully, we should have a nice calm exit. Once you have dealt with about 90% of the enemies down here, your familiar will activate and give you a trail that will lead you out. Simply fire a teleport arrow into this portal to leave. If you've had a rough ride of it and are on death's door, just get the hell out of here. Do bear in mind that these pits are the best places to farm ghosts and incubi, which will lead you to some nice achievements. Just getting through that exit will unlock the Pit of Perdition. If you can complete this one in 9 minutes, you will get an additional drop on exit. Completing a pit without taking any damage will unlock orphans for it. Know that when they unlock, the pursuit of them can cause you to do some very silly things down here, which nicely finishes on the ultimate reason why pits are a nightmare, because orphans.
It's a trap!